All right, it is our first post-election war room, Bruce.
Has it been a week?
I think it has been a week and a day. Yes, the War Room every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, a political symposium, if you will. Let's introduce our panel. Obviously, it's Bruce, it's Gaydos.
No.
We've got Michelle Ugenti-Rita, former Republican Arizona State Senator. It's great to see you.
Thank
How are you?
Much. Very good.
Hey,
Glad
thanks
to be
for
here.
coming in. We've got Gina Swoboda, very happy chair of the Arizona Republican Party. Gina?
Still basking in the glow?
Wait a second. Is she doing the Trump dance? Oh, for crying out loud.
Play YMCA every once in a while. You know, you just want to make people feel at home. Yeah,
I've got it. If
I know you do.
If you really want to hear the YMCA, we don't have to do that tonight.
No,
Okay.
right.
All right.
But when called upon, I can do that wedding dance. I can also do the
The
chicken dance
Macarena?
and the
Can you do the
tarantella.
Macarena?
No.
And by the way, and joining us in a little bit,
Yes.
will be Democratic strategist Toni Cani. So we will jump into things now.
All right. Why don't we first start with, how we do elections in Arizona? So let's run it down.
Yeah.
This currently, Arizona still has 125,000 ballots to count.
Right.
Right?
And that's pretty unacceptable.
Maricopa County has 27,000 ballots to count.
Yes,
We've
Maricopa
got
County does.
Maricopa County has 17,500 of those early ballots still to count. Those are the ones that that people got in the mail, filled it out, licked the thing, didn't put it in the mail. They dropped it off at election day, and that's really stopped.
The kind of the late earlies, is that what we
Late
call them?
earlies, they call them.
Do we need new rules? Do we need new laws for election? Because I am a yes and Bruce is a no. I'm
Whoa,
actually,
Bruce, get out.
Bruce, I'm going to bring the heat.
No,
Michelle, you
let's go.
start.
All
And then
right.
Okay, yeah. So
we worked on some of this stuff together.
why do we have to learn the hard way?
Why do we have envelopes? Can I just say, it's not just late earlies. If I walk in and vote early in person, I have shown you my ID or you can't generate the ballot, right?
Yeah.
Why in the name of God am I putting it in an envelope? They're putting it in an envelope.
Because you're voting by mail, essentially, when you vote early in person. But that's
Even if it doesn't go in the mailbox.
Which is
correct,
ridiculous.
which is insane, but that's separate than these.
I'll defend you that. I'll defend that one. I agree with you on that.
Do you see what I'm
thank
saying?
you.
Yes, like
Yes.
you should. If you're voting in person, then you need to vote in person like a day of voter, which is you're filling out your ballot or you're bringing in a ballot that's already filled out and you're tabulating it on site. That does not happen currently when you're voting in person early.
By law.
By law. So like what Gina said, when you vote in person early, you're essentially voting by mail. So there's a lot of
You're just skipping the mailbox.
you're just skipping really.
You're
yeah.
just dropping it off
And
with election
makes-
officials instead of
They're
putting it in the
rid-
box.
Yes, and you have this redundancy that's costing time and money and energy. But to your point, the drop-offs is a different issue.
Okay.
These are individuals, voters, dropping off their ballot, their pre-filled out ballot in the affidavit envelope at a polling location day of the election.
Correct.
And they contribute significantly to the result being delayed because they're tabulated at the very end. And so 5 years ago, I recognize this as an issue, and frankly, it existed even prior to 5 years ago.
This isn't new.
This is not
we didn't
new,
change
guys.
a lot of
Arguing
this.
about it at
It's
the
always
legislature
been
for
this.
4 cycles.
Okay, good.
So, it makes sense that we would reinforce our mail-in process. If you're voting by mail, drop it in the mailbox. If you don't like that, like you're all, suspicious of the post office, fine, vote in person. But when I did the bill, there was an incredible amount of pushback from the press, the Secretary of State.
what did they not want? What did they not like?
They said that I was doing it, and those who supported the bill were frankly racist, and it adds
suppression.
voter suppression, which is voter suppression of minority groups. Those were the comments that Lori Roberts made in her.
Is there any? I apologize for interrupting. Is there any data backing up that it's specifically minorities that are doing this? Because I've never
it's
seen
Republican.
that.
It's out.
I'll tell you that right now.
It's
is.
Republicans.
It's Republican, and that was
Because
and that's what Lori was saying. She's like, Republicans are doing this. This also disenfranchises minority individuals. But the reality is that there's nothing racist about it. It makes perfect policy sense that we would try to reduce or limit or get rid of. I think ban people from dropping them off. They can certainly come in with their pre-filled out ballot and tabulate it on demand. But here's the bigger problem besides this policy conversation. It's the fact that we identified a solution over 5 years ago, and it has taken this long for us to recognize that we have a problem. Because we have the main, that's the issue, that this gets vilified and it precludes the legislature from doing something that could have been resolved years ago.
But we need to talk about the County Lobbying Association, because I had this in the recount bill. So we just passed the timeline recount bill where we changed all our deadlines, right? That's where we shrank the cure window. We had to get the electors out. Congress passed the Electoral Count Reform Act. I had in the bill, in my policy advisor hat to the Senate Committee on Elections, I had in there, eliminate the drop-off of late earlies after 7 p.m. Friday, because that is the end of early voting by statute. It's actually 5 p.m. Friday.
The Friday before the election.
Right. Before the
So
election.
we didn't want to confuse voters, so we actually extended it to 7 p.m. Friday. So everybody knows that's the end of early voting. You drop it off. You can still take it to the recorder. You can still take it to a drop box, but it's too late to put it in the mail. We expected, both Scott Jarrett, the Maricopa County Elections Director, and myself, in the worst case scenario, 400,000 of our voters to do that. We did a great job messaging. I was on radio, digital, everywhere. Don't do that. Don't do that. It was about 229,000 people who did that, which is less than the number of people who did it in the midterm. In the midterm, 289,000 people did it. But it's the combination of that. Plus, and it is Republicans, and my commentary at the time when we were trying to pass that bill was, we can educate the voters. It had an emergency provision. It would have gone into effect before the presidential preference election, March 19th. So they would have had two elections, the PPE, the primary, and then the general, right? We can for sure do that now. And then the second part is the tabulation of early ballots on site. That's what Florida does. That's the difference. People keep going, be like Florida.
Be like Florida. Florida knows who.
I offered them $10 million in a bill.
So Florida has a cutoff date of when you can drop it off at a poll place, right?
They're letting them bring it in, but the difference in Florida is
They
that
tabulate
they tabulate. They have limited early voting instantly. You walk in. Now, let's say you didn't want to tabulate on site. So we'll call it the naked ballot. The naked ballot. Drop your naked ballot in the secure ballot bucket inside the polling place, the way they do on Election Day in many of our counties. We don't tabulate in many of our counties, even on Election Day. We do in Maricopa, so we're used to it, but we don't do it elsewhere. There are ways to avoid the envelope. I, do the Observer program. I'm working with the election officials every day. The problem that they've had is getting the ballot separation board, pulling it out of the envelope. Now it's 2 pages, pulling it out of the envelope, and they're trying to count how many sheets they're sending to tabulation, and they keep having to send it back going, the count is wrong. Ugh. The ballot boards keep quitting. In Pima, they're tabulating 20,000 a day because they can't keep the ballot separation board staffed. I've had to, good people. Our election officials are good, hardworking people, okay?
All over the state.
Okay.
Sure.
Except they all opposed this proposal. That has to be noted. The ACO did, the associations.
Poll workers didn't want this?
The recorder's office didn't want it. Go back and look. I watched all the testimony on my bill in 2019. The Secretary of State was against it.
And in
Jen
the last
Larson
session
was against it. She represents the
ACO, Arizona Association.
The Board of Supervisors were against it.
Well, this isn't
Everyone
just R
was
versus
against.
D, though, because there's a lot of people in that list you just went through, Michelle,
that
who are Republicans. So why are they opposed to this?
Because I think what people are finally seeing is that you've had these institutions and little fiefdoms, and they're protective of them. And they don't care that there's a better way. They're not really interested in working collaboratively with the legislature. I can tell you I have been in dozens and dozens of stakeholder meetings, and the posture from the County Board of Supervisors and typically the recorders and the SOS is to not negotiate, is to hold their ground, to not look for a better way. And they're out of touch. And so
we're out of time. A good Hall & Oates song is appropriate. But can I say my theory? Okay.
All right.
My theory is they wanted to go to all mail, only mail. Because I couldn't get them to let go of the damn envelope.
Well, theory.
Why do I need an envelope if I showed you my ID? Why are you making me sign something?
I see.
Even in this bill that we passed in 2026, you have the ability as a voter, when you walk in, with your mail ballot. You may choose to show your ID, and they will stamp it ID verified. This is the law right now. It'll go into effect in 26. But they insisted on keeping the envelope. I said, why? Why do you want to spend millions of dollars and the time to take it out of the envelope? And the answer was like, well, we're using it as a precinct register where you used to sign on paper. And I said, but HUVA, the federal government, gives you millions of dollars in funds. We'll give you $10 million. It's not about money. It's about will. Do you have the will?
Well, listen, I think there are more and more people coming to your side. I guess I would say
they are. They're like late early.
Yeah, we're going to run it first, Bill.
Yeah, and we shall see if the Arizona legislature decides.
Well, the question is, will the governor sign it? I think that just the Republican majority legislature will pass it, no doubt. But will the Democrat governor, who when was Secretary of State, adamantly opposed it, will she all of a sudden, see the light?
I think if you're dropping your ballot off and you've been lazy,
and you have election day,
I love our voters.
I think some of them are lazy, and they want to muck up the system. I think they should be publicly shamed.
Yes.
Okay.
You don't get the I voted sticker. You get something horrible. You know.
Yes.
You get the
I gummed it up.
I forgot. The dunce hat sticker.
All right. We are inside the war room. Joining us right now is Gina Swoboda, the chair of the Arizona Republican Party, Michelle Ugenti-Rita, former Republican Arizona State Senator, and Toni Cani, Democratic strategist, will be jumping in the studio with us in just a moment. Up next, does Trump deserve to have the peaceful transfer of power he didn't do for Joe Biden? We'll talk about it next. We're inside the war room here on KTAR. Hey, quick shout out to everybody listening in Wickenburg. Oh, beautiful Wickenburg. They're working on that new little traffic thing through there so I can get to Vegas quicker. Keep it up, Wickenburg. Great work. I appreciate it. All right. Today, you had what was described as cordial and a good meeting between President Biden and President-elect Trump in the White House today. Part of the transitioning, if you will.
Yeah. I'm not sure he deserved it.
Trump
I'm
or
not
Biden?
sure he deserved it.
Okay.
Biden was trying to be the bigger man. And in studio, we've got Michelle Ugenti-Rita, former Republican Arizona State Senator, and Gina Swoboda, chair of the Arizona Republican Party. Like, I was looking on social media, and there were a bunch of people like, it really would have been cool if Biden didn't welcome him back and all that kind of stuff. And then it pays Trump for not being petty 4 years ago. I did notice, though, and I think the biggest part of it, because they're both sitting there in the Oval Office, and 4 years ago, you're never going to see that again, right? These two guys sitting there. Joe Biden, actually, I think he said the words, welcome back.
Did you see the smile?
Yeah.
I'm surprised
Biden
he
or
didn't
Trump?
break out in the MAGA arena.
Yeah, he's
he was
almost
happy.
Biggest fan.
Yeah. I think he was very not happy about being pushed out.
Are you guys telling me that
100%,
Joe
yes.
Biden was liking sitting next to Donald Trump?
He was the smiliest I've seen him.
Really?
And since
and energized?
Kamala. Yep.
Well,
hey, did you notice Joe Biden wore red when she went out to vote?
No.
I'm just saying.
So okay.
It's a bit of a thing.
like Bruce and I were sitting here and so he just called half the country who votes for Trump garbage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is he trying to help Kamala Harris? And,
Yeah, that's a good question.
You guys think, you really think that he was that ticked off?
I think
really,
he couldn't hide what he really felt inside.
He'd rather
I
have
really
Trump?
think that Joe Biden thought he was the only one who could beat Trump. He was the only one who could have beaten him in 20. He was the only one, I think he thought, that could beat him again. He got rolled. Pelosi, frankly stole it from him with no votes in a primary. If there was an undemocratic process, it was for sure the lack of a primary on the Democrat side. They wouldn't do an open primary. And I think he's quite angry. I think, frankly, he has a right to be angry.
What about the other side of it? What about the other side? Well, Joe Biden stepped down for the country. He's the real...
I don't think the electoral map would have changed if Biden would have run. I think it would have. I think the 7 swing states would have gone to Trump. I don't think Trump would have won a state that Harris. I think
the Democrats probably would have performed better.
I think that if there had been a candidate that could have distanced themselves from the Biden administration on the Democrat side of the aisle, I don't know, like RFK Jr., perhaps in a primary that he was unfairly locked out of, I don't necessarily think we are looking at this outcome. I don't think Kamala was able to say
she wasn't able to distinguish herself.
The vice president. I don't think the vice president was able to say, how she would have performed differently. And I frankly think there was probably an agreement of sorts where, like, you're not going to come out and criticize me on the trail, and I'm going to be cooperative, and I'm going to support you on the trail.
She was like the Dems' sacrificial lamb.
It was big headwinds,
Did
regardless
Josh
of who it
Shapiro
was.
refuse to run as vice president because
I
he knew
think
she
so.
was,
I
he was
think
going to tank?
he wants to run on his own. I think there's a certain
it would
argument.
tanked his career.
But
Yeah.
does Biden get credit for being the bigger man?
Doing
No,
what?
because if Biden had been the bigger man.
By inviting Trump to the White House when Trump didn't invite Biden to the White House.
No, if Biden had been the bigger man, Biden would have stepped aside when it was clear that he, in my view, was not competent to run the country.
I've been saying that too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to look back and say, "Oh, well, Kamala was put in a very tough situation."
Yeah, it was
she
late.
was. She
It was
was.
late.
There's no doubt about it. I think she did the best that she could. I don't think it was a terrible campaign, but I think if you want to blame somebody, if you're looking to do that, it's Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Joe Biden knew that he wasn't, and I'm not trying to be mean, all there, because he certainly wasn't.
Well, you say he
cognitively there.
knows that. I think one of the problems is when you are in decline, you don't know that you
Okay,
are in decline.
but here's the
maybe
other-
everybody
But
else
But
does.
but there's two issues. There's
Okay.
his decline, and then there's the policy platforms the Democrats were running on this election cycle, completely
Yeah,
out
but
of
there was
touch.
also Democrats inside the White House
the
who were
cabinet.
telling us he's fine.
Yeah, right.
That could have
he's
invoked
sharp. He's as
yeah.
sharp as he's ever been.
Yeah.
And we're sitting
And
here.
nobody believes
You had Republicans say the same thing about Ronald Reagan in his last year.
But they're both
That's
wrong.
their job.
We were sitting here
It's their
playing.
job.
We were sitting here playing clips of Joe Biden who couldn't remember anything.
There's never been a vice president of the United States who came out and goes, "This guy is nuts, shouldn't be president."
He's
No,
Never.
that's the job of people in the cabinet and that are around him to tap him and go, "Hey, sir."
Yeah.
Well, I would. It appears that he wasn't listening. If that was happening, he wasn't listening to advice.
I think Joe Biden handed the White House back to Donald Trump, made him more powerful and more popular than he's ever been, and I think that's on.
That'll
Biden.
be his legacy.
That's
Thank you, Joe
Biden's-
Biden.
That's Joe Biden's. And some people
You've done us a
are,
solid.
Are
Yeah.
saying thank you exactly, and other people are saying, "Joe, you killed us. My goodness, we got this guy back."
Yeah.
Politically, he killed them. And to Michelle's point, the policies are destroying the working class, the middle class, the people with dreams and aspirations. You know, as Nigel Farage would say, the strivers among us who want to, go and have a business and work and do, and they couldn't. They were crushed. They were crushed by regulatory capture.
Yeah. Hey, we're inside the war room. You just heard Gina Swoboda, chair of the Arizona Republican Party, joined in studio by Michelle Ugenti-Rita, former Arizona State Senator here. And we are going to continue. We got another topic. How's this? Arizona's Attorney General, one Chris Mays. Attorney General Mays, is she joining the resistance against Trump? She made some interesting comments today. We're going to talk about it with our War Room panel coming up next, right here. Outspoken on KTAR. You're inside the War Room, as we do every Wednesday at 5 o'clock. You've heard the term better late than never, right? Well, no pressure. Toni Cani, Democratic strategist, joins us right now. Former Arizona Deputy Director of the Biden for President. He is in the middle, a sandwich, if you will, of Republicans. Gina Swoboda, the chair of the Arizona Republican Party, and Michelle Ugenti-Rita, former Republican state senator. Thank you guys all for being here. All right. One of the things that I noticed today was our Attorney General, Chris Mays, is apparently joining the ranks of other Democratic state officials. I guess joining the ranks of the Trump resistance, where she said she has been speaking with her compatriots in other states like California, Colorado, Illinois, Massachusetts, and beyond, and plans to oppose any unconstitutional actions, specifically around immigration and abortion. What does that mean exactly?
Well, that's intriguing because we just had an entire constellation of Republican AGs overturning the unlawful, unconstitutional executive order on immigration from the outgoing president.
So there were Republican attorney generals who decided to hold the president accountable to the Constitution. All right, well, I guess we should allow the Democratic attorney general to try and hold the Republican president accountable to the Constitution.
The Constitution.
And the
What
courts
does it
are the
mean?
ones that will be making the decision in this, right?
Correct.
It's like,
The Supreme Court, the unpacked Supreme Court.
so, So the packed Supreme Court is the one at the state of Arizona. The unpacked Supreme Court is the one in the United States, capital Washington, D.C. And so that's who's going to make the
There you
decision.
go.
I remember, Brnovich did a lot of this stuff, especially when he was gearing up to run for Senate.
Yeah.
But, I do think that the attorney general knows that, look, we're a purple state that, of course, just had a very red election. I think she understands the politics of this, but she's going to stand in the way if she thinks that things are being done that are unconstitutional.
Give us an example. What could she fight Trump on?
Can I throw one in here? And you guys tell me. She says that, and this is directly quotes from her. I'm not making it up. She said she would draw the line at any attempt to reverse DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals policy, and anything that would separate families.
Well, she's going to run into Homan because when they asked him, what was your plan to avoid family separation? I think his exact answer was,
deport the family.
Deport the whole family.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
So
maybe the
DACA's already
350,000
been
missing
gutted.
children would like to have stayed with their family. I would think perhaps.
I don't know how out of touch you can continue. You can continually be because the border is a real issue. It's why the Democrats lost. So this kind of position from her just, to me, makes it look extreme and sets herself up for a lot of problems. I do not understand.
I saw some exit polls, though, on election night or the day after, that at least in the exit polls, the majority of people, and it was 60-40 or whatever, were not for kicking 15 million people out of the country. That's not a majority opinion.
I know that's where we're going to go in the zeitgeist of what's presented in the media, but they absolutely knew what they were voting for. If you look at the border cities like Rio Rico and San Luis here in Arizona, they swung widely to the red side all along the border.
But Kamala still won all the border counties, though, right?
Yeah, but if you move that far to the right, that's because those
There's a
communities
problem.
combined.
They've seen.
Yes,
They're unhappy.
those are Democrat counties.
Yes.
And I think, and I do think, listen, like, here's the thing. Like, we walked into this. If you look at the stances that the parties had in immigration in this election, they were farther right than they were in the previous elections. Like, they kept pointing to the cinema bill that Trump killed, as we kept saying over and over again. And that is, as a starting point, that's definitely farther right. But the question here is, while doing enforcement, are you going to try and violate constitutional protections that people have? If so, the Attorney General is going to step in.
Correct.
That's the line.
She should. And
that's the line.
And if SCOTUS says it is constitutional what's being done, then we will
There's no
continue.
more
Then she
argument.
You can't stop anybody.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then that's it. But on the abortion issue, which I think is one of the things
Which is settled out.
The people already spoke.
Right. And the administration has been very clear they do not have any plans to monitor a woman's sex
Well, then
life.
she will have no need to step in.
Correct.
So why is she posturing that way?
And because she's warning, because there are many people who are very afraid that something could happen.
Is it
Well,
because of
that's
Governor Hobbs'
fear-mongering, and that's
30%?
part of the
You
problem.
both
No,
have told me
that's
for a
part
couple of
the
years
problem.
that people who are worried about election integrity, because they're worried about, we have to make changes.
Let's do
so
it.
as a
but
result,
there are actual quantifiable problems with the election.
Oh,
so
but
it's
there isn't
beyond
with
just,
women who've been like.
But wait,
there's
more.
It's already been.
Chris Mays is looking at a 30-something handle on Katie Hobbs' approval rating, and I'm wondering if she's not trying to separate herself from that.
This is just like Jill Biden wearing the red dress. You think I wasn't listening on the radio? I was listening. What a preposterous thing to say.
Oh, come on, man.
Whatever.
Come on, man. As Joe Biden would say, come on, man.
But this is the yin and the yang going on right now, because Trump and certainly his supporters believe they have a 90% mandate to do anything they damn well please. Right.
He won. He swept the swing states, had 312 electoral votes. He came in with a mandate, and if indeed he overreaches the constitutional boundaries of his role in the executive branch, I fully expect that the AGs in the impacted states will go to SCOTUS, and I expect that we will all live with what SCOTUS says and not threaten the court, which is what has happened over the past couple of years.
Let me ask you a question. We're inside the war room. We've got Toni Cani, Democratic strategist. On either side, you've got a Republican. Tony, you've got your work cut out for you today. Gina Swoboda, chair of the Arizona Republican Party. Michelle Ugenti-Rita, former Republican Arizona state senator. What does Katie Hobbs think of all this? Because I don't hear from her. I don't know what she's saying. Why does the AG come out? I know why the AG has come out and said this. And Tony, I think you're right. I think there are some people that are concerned about a Trump administration. They are scared. Okay, so Mays comes out. But what does our governor think? Because I don't hear much from that office ever.
She's taken the position through this as she's focused on the stuff that's happening in Arizona. I'm sure she's going to speak out at some point on these things, but she hasn't yet. She's not the Attorney General. That's the job of the Attorney General.
Right,
and
right.
so
But she is the leader of the state.
She is the leader of
and
the
I
state.
I can't remember one who was quiet as her.
I don't want my governor to be in front. I don't like, how Joe Arpaio is in front of a camera all the time and like, oh my gosh. I don't want our governor, whoever that is.
To be a reality TV star.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah.
But you got to come out once in a while, and I just don't see her. That maybe I'm missing her. Am I missing her?
It's like an all or nothing, apparently, and she's on the nothing side.
To go out. So what you're saying, she didn't do a press conference where she stood up and said things that these two women would say was she shouldn't say. That as a result, she's being quiet on things.
As the chief executive, right? What do you think, Tony?
I genuinely think that they, as an administration, are figuring out what it is that they can and can't do. They've been very cautious about all this stuff. I mean, I think that's definitive. They've been very cautious about their approach to most of these kinds of things. I know the people on their legal team, and they are very good, very smart, very deliberate. And I think that when the time comes, they're going to come out and they'll make a statement.
All right, we're inside the war room, an amazing panel. Thank you so much. We got Toni, Gina, Michelle, and coming up next. Let's get into something that there's no controversy around, right? There's nothing that we need to worry about.
Zero controversy. Yeah.
Kari Lake. We're going to be talking about Kari Lake coming up next. We're outspoken here on KTAR.
All right, everybody, we're inside the war room. Last segment. Thank you for joining us. Bruce has been on his best behavior.
I'm trying.
Why don't you introduce the group once again?
As I will. To my right, Michelle Ugenti-Rita, former Republican Arizona State Senator, stuck in the middle there. That's Toni Cani, Democratic strategist, and Arizona Deputy Director for Biden for President back in the day, right?
Can I take everybody off?
Oh, go ahead.
All right. Honestly.
I didn't finish introducing everybody.
Keep going. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say I had one more to go, and all the way to the end there. That's
sorry.
That's Gina Swoboda, chair of the Arizona Republican Party. Go ahead and take everybody off.
All right. Kari Lake's a terrible candidate, right? I mean, listen. I'm not gonna make
results would seem to be in your favor. Making that argument.
We got two Republicans sitting in this room. Okay. She can't win. She can't get an independent vote. She may have come closer in this election. But, aren't you guys tired of her losing, or am I off?
I support all of our beautiful candidates. All of the votes are not in.
You don't want her to run again, no, right?
Kari has every right to run her race the way that she sees fit. The results are not what we would have wanted, and there are undervotes across the state in that race.
Michelle?
Well, look, I mean, running races are difficult,
right?
All right, and and from a candidate's perspective, there's a lot in your control. There's a lot out of your control. And in fact, I would tell you that most is out of your control. You don't know why people are voting. Always the reason, why they're voting the way they're voting. There's so many other factors, and in politics as well, things turn on a dime in a second, in a minute. I mean, she did the best she could. Yeah. It looks like she was competitive.
A massive red wave, and she's one of the few Republicans that lost across the country.
And by the way, I just saw Garrett Archer, our friend at Channel 15, did some math, and he had all of the Arizona congressional, the winners so far, all the winners,
and the Trump margin,
Trump margin, and the difference. She underperformed literally everybody in the state.
I mean, it was showing up in the polling, even in the most positive polling, and I think the number that I always pointed to was the unfavorable numbers that she had. I mean, that doesn't always indicate vote choice, but I think there's a lot of people who did not like her who chose to vote for her for sure. But her unfavorable numbers were 50% and over, with about 48, depending on the poll, being very unfavorable. That's really hard to overcome.
How do you overcome that?
Well, you don't go on every single weird right-wing internet show after you refuse to concede and say a bunch of things over and over and over again that we got video of that we can put in TV ads, and then you don't say, I never said those things. I never said, I think there was a moment where she said, I never said I was in favor of this 1864 ban, even though there was audio of her citing the statute.
Yeah.
A thing that you couldn't, if you quizzed people, you wouldn't be able to find out what the statute was. But I would say this: since the election is the best that Kari Lake has ever been. She's been quiet. She's waiting for the results to come in. If she would have done that after the last loss, I think we would be in probably a different situation. I still think Rubin is a very strong candidate.
If she had conceded the last time?
Conceded and not gone on this grievance tour.
I think that she has a very strong, unique voice for the movement, and I think she's got a tremendous amount of talent.
But people aren't buying into it, though.
Well, a lot of people did. She just came up short.
She came up short.
Right.
But and dig what you're saying
in
on the
two very
election thing,
winnable
but-
races.
Yeah.
She's lost both of them.
That equipment issue in Maricopa was heartbreaking. We had all of our voters in a barrel, right? And so you can't prove a negative. I think she took it very hard. I understand why it hurt. And, we are where we are. She ran a tough race. She ran the best race she could. The votes are out, and we'll see where we go. But there's no doubt but that she has a voice that has appeal with part of the electorate.
And one thing is Ruben Gallego ran a very good campaign.
Yeah.
He ran a good campaign.
He was disciplined, I would use the term.
Disciplined. He was out there actively reaching out to communities that we knew that Democrats were struggling with. He was out there working with them.
I would say he didn't take the bait either.
Yeah, and he stayed focused.
He just didn't take her bait.
The thing about and I don't know if you served with him when you
I
was in the
served.
legislature.
Yes, I did.
And so I've known him for a long time, and he is one of these candidates who knows campaigns and knows politics. And no offense to a lot of candidates don't. They just don't understand sort of the business of campaigning. Because it's a different thing to be somebody
Sounds like
who
you
stands up in
pitching
the
for
row.
a job, Tony.
He is somebody. Yeah. So hire me.
Someone will hire you.
So hire me. My win streak is
now.
alive because I wasn't on the presidential this year.
He knows what to do and what not to do.
And so, and that does go a long way. Plus, he's humble enough, especially since he's humble enough to sort of take advice, which a lot of candidates who are smart aren't.
What's she running for next? Quickly, what is she?
Nothing.
Nothing? Come on, she's not done.
Well, if she wants to,
she's going to run for something else.
What did Meghan McCain tell us? She's making Arizona blue.
Yeah. One office at a time, apparently. Hey, thank you guys so much for being in the War Room with us today.
I loved it.
Michelle Ugenti-Rita, Toni Cani, Gina Swoboda, we appreciate your presence. We appreciate your passionate arguments, and we look forward to having you back at another time, all right?
Thank you. Thank you.
Outstanding.
So much.
That is the War Room for this Wednesday. We'll do it again next Wednesday. We'll put together another group of people and have some conversations about exactly what's going on in the world of politics and centering around Arizona.
Thanks for watching Outspoken with Bruce and Gaydos. Tap to watch more from KTAR News and click the button in the middle to subscribe.